Blood in my eye, cold steel on my temple. That's how the day pretended to end. Not so untouchable now. Are you? The officer breathed, his hands steady, his breath sour with coffee. I didn't answer. I counted 1, 2, 3 because sometimes counting is all you have between you and a bad headline. If you're wondering how I got there, why I didn't pull rank, why I didn't shout my title to the sky, you're not wrong to ask. This is the part nobody believes until the receipts start piling up. It was a Friday that felt like a Sunday. I'd swapped the courthouse heels for flats, the black robe for a gray sweater, and my usual sedan for my old hatchback, the one that rattles on left turns, but still smells like citrus because I'm stubborn about the little things. I was headed to my sister's place outside Pine Harbor, a lake town that sells itself like a postcard flags in the Windows Veterans Plaques Bakery that closes at noon because folks know the hours. I knew the speed limit. I also knew the look that slid across the officer's face when he leaned in my window, like he'd already written the end of my story in his head. License and registration, he said, slow as if English had to be chewed first. His nameplate read, Case. A second officer circled to the passenger side, tipped his chin. At me smirked Ramsey, the kind who enjoys a crowd. Afternoon, officer, I said. May I ask why I was stopped? 40 in a 35 case, answered flat and certain. I was at 35, I said, not raising my voice, not daring to reach for anything yet. I'll provide my license and I'd like your badge numbers. You people always got questions, Ramsey tossed over the roof almost like a joke if it hadn't been so practiced. I should have said it, then my title, but I didn't. I wanted to see what would happen if I were just a black woman in a sweater on a quiet road. I wanted to see the system without the costume jewelry. I reached slow for my purse. Ramsey shouted, She's reaching, and then the world tilted. The door yanked open, concrete scraped. My cheek, cuffs, bit my wrists. It's funny what you notice, the grit in your teeth, the scuff on somebody's boot, the way birds keep singing like none of this is happening. At the Pine Harbor Station, time stopped somewhere in the late 70s. Stained ceiling tiles, a heritage display of a whites-only sign like it was a knick-knack, a coffee mug with a rebel flag half-turned like a dare. They shoved me into a holding cell with a woman in a grocery smock and a kid whose knees wouldn't stop bouncing. I'm Marnie, the woman whispered, eyes swollen from trying not to cry. They say I stole perfume. I still got the receipt. I'm Theo, the kid said, fists jammed in his hoodie. Waiting for my ride outside my job now, it's loitering. Lena, I said, trimming off the rest of my name. I'm sorry you're here. The chief waddled up with the lazy confidence of a man who thinks the sun clocks in under his supervision. Brant stitched above the pocket star, bigger than modesty. Causing my boys trouble, he asked like he was asking about the weather. I'd like my phone call, I said. Calls are a privilege, not a right, he lied. And when I asked for charges, Case said, speeding, resisting disrespect in a rhythm like the Three Little Pigs. I logged everything in my head, dates, faces, words that land like slaps. When a younger officer accepted my idea to process, his eyes froze on the name, and in the space of a breath, the station's temperature changed. Chairs got straight and flags untangled, computers magically fixed. Judge Lena Coleman, federal bench, suddenly doors opened and smiles appeared. Apologies tripped over each other like puppies. If you just identified yourself, Case said, trying on a nicer tone, we could have avoided this. What happened to me, I answered. Shouldn't happen to anyone. I signed out my belongings and didn't let the anger show. Anger makes people watch the wrong thing. I drove to my sister Simone's little church-turned-community center on the edge of Ridgefield, the black neighborhood, Pine Harbor. Hopes tourists don't notice when they print the brochures. Simone met me with a hug that cracked my armor and a binder that put it back together. 3 years, she said, tugging a rubber band off a stack of photocopies. Stops, fines, searches, code violations for a cracked step that's been there since '81. Look at the dates, Lena. I looked. The pattern wasn't subtle. Officers Case and Ramsey showed up like watermarks. Tickets, ballooned hearings got dismissed by Judge Phelps down at County, and somehow a developer named Hartwell managed to scoop up houses at half their worth, like a man collecting marbles from kids who never learned to say no to a smiling adult. Watch the money, Simone said. Hartwell funds Brandt's foundations. Phelps rubber stamps evictions. Folks give up. I called Damon a civil rights attorney who's too stubborn to die and too decent to quit. He spread files across his office until the carpet disappeared. I've tried to crack Pine Harbor, he admitted, but witnesses get spooked and evidence vanishes. You're the first person with authority who lived it. Quietly, I reached out to an old clerk in the Department of Justice, kept my voice low, kept my paperwork cleaner than a grandmother's kitchen. Evidence got scanned into federal storage duplication as a kind of prayer. Then the machine did what machines do when you kick them, they spun. An editorial ran in the Harbor Ledger calling me erratic anonymous sources, humming that I tried to throw weight around. Simone Center got a surprise inspection and a threat of closure for a missing exit map that was literally taped to the wall. Marnie got fired. Theo got picked up, again for sales, with a bag of oregano they swore was pot. A sedan idled across from Simone's house like it had a right to breathe our air. The first crack in their wall came from inside. Officer Alvarez, 8 months on the job posture like he still believed in. Things pulled me aside in a courthouse parking lot lit like a cheap confession. There's a pipeline, he said, voice barely a thread. Brandt to Phelps to Hartwell. Bonuses tied to arrests and liens, a memo about making Ridgefield uncomfortable. He needed protection. He risked his career just telling me. I promised him more than words. Here's where you might get mad at me. I publicly recused myself from anything touching Pine Harbor. It read like capitulation. Judge Coleman folds the headline side. Champagne popped at Hartwell's club. Brandt bragged at the diner. Phelps did his benevolent routine at church. In private, we placed recorders where their egos felt safest. Phelps's study where the scotch lives. Brandt's office under the nostalgia plaques, Hartwell's glass penthouse, with the view he thinks proves he's right about everything. And then they talked. People who think they own the room always do. Target the holdouts. Phelps purred on tape. Find them to court, move the calendar. Brandt bragged about stop ratios in Ridgefield and reminders for folks who forget where they belong. Hartwell said the quiet part loud. If the judge is out, put a shovel in the ground. In 30 days, investors don't wait. And then darker names of people who made trouble. A fatal crash that shut down the noise. A doctor who stopped fighting after a heart scare the code office didn't help. We bought 48 hours with a federal injunction from a visiting judge, evictions and demolitions, frozen civil rights investigation on the record. It rattled them. Phelps called it a bluff. Brandt paced. Hartwell did math out loud like money could bully the law. That night, Alvarez texted me. They're planning something. Case and Ramsey took gear unmarked car. I moved Simone to a safe house, briefed the marshals chose a stage that mattered. The old Pierce home, a Ridgefield landmark, Hartwell drooled over boarded windows, chewing the wind. I parked in the circular drive at dusk, the kind of light that makes everything feel like it deserves a witness. Hidden cameras watched, radios breathed in my ear. My hands stayed empty. Headlights slid across the wall. Two shadows moved like they were auditioning for a cheap cop show. Case first, Ramsey behind him, guns nearby, but not yet out. Judge Coleman at Case said, trying on my title like a coat that didn't fit. Trespassing? Dangerous? Curious, I said, how your patrol routes hug every property Hartwell wants. Don't know what you mean, Ramsey sneered. Then couldn't resist, but since you raised it, we hear there's concern about a federal judge overstepping, seeing ghosts where there's just good policing. Judge Phelps worries about your stability. I listed it for them, emails targeting holdouts. Donation ledgers from Hartwell to Brandt's scholarship court calendars that moved like puppets dash cam from my stop that went missing and somehow wasn't. Their faces shifted the kind of flicker that says, I've walked in your house with muddy boots and put my feet on your table. Careful Case murmured, stepping close enough I could count a scar on his jaw. People who push too hard have accidents here. Is that your decision? I asked, or Phelps's? Or Hartwell's? Ramsey glanced at Case, then spit the line that sealed it. Town's better off without you, without your people. The muzzle pressed my temple, cold familiar. Not so untouchable now, Case said, the line he'd been saving. Federal marshals now, I said, and the house exploded. Boots shouts the smack of metal on tile. Case blinked at 10 rifles. Ramsey bolted and got tackled in the weeds. Across town, synchronized warrants snapped Brandt trying to burn files and stopped by his own officers going, No, sir. Phelps with a suitcase and a first-class ticket to nowhere Hartwell, in his glass box offering me $1 million. as if decency were something you could cater. There isn't a price, I told him, which he hated more than the cuffs, and somewhere a camera caught the walk of shame through those glass doors. That photo did what editorials couldn't. It told the truth in one shot. The days after were noisy, 15 indictments to start boxes of evidence, moving through chain of custody like a parade with a conscience. Ridgefield outside Simone's center, hugging like they'd finally exhaled. Marnie got her job back with back pay. Theo's charges evaporated, and I told him in the hallway to keep his head in the game, to turn that anger into study hours. Alvarez slept for the first time in weeks. The work, the real work, isn't the headline, it's the rebuilding. A retired commander took the interim chief job. Monitors demanded data live in daylight. Alvarez joined the training unit and taught the thing that should be day one on the job: how to see what's in front of you without the rot in the rear view. Visiting judges rotated the docket. Phelps sat in a cell without his ring. Hartwell's renderings turned to weeds behind a chain link, while the land moved to a community trust that let Simone and her neighbors hold a pen at the planning table. The old Pierce home got landmark protection with teeth. You want the controversies? I'll give you the controversy. I got hauled into a hearing for my next seat, people saying I ran a sting, that I traded restraint for fireworks. Senator, I said into the mic, my oath isn't to comfort, it's to the Constitution. In Pine Harbor, standard channels meant shredded evidence and scared witnesses. I chose action inside the law. If that's activism to you, maybe the definition of judicial courage needs a tune-up. Some nodded, some didn't. That's all right. Doing the right thing isn't a popularity contest. It's a record. I still drive past Pine Harbor on quiet mornings. The new sign says where justice matters, for everyone, small letters, which is good promises, shouldn't yell. Outside Simone's center, there's a display, old maps, porch photos, a little card with dates and times written by hands that have folded more laundry than most of us will ever own. A teenager asked me once, if you weren't a judge, would they have believed you? Probably not. I told her, and that's exactly why those of us with authority have to spend it, not hoard it. So tell me, where do you stand on this, really? Was I right to stay quiet at that, to stop and gather proof? Or should I have flashed the badge and gone home? Have you seen a town run by whispers and favors, a traffic stop that wasn't about traffic at all? Drop your city, your story, and what you think justice looks like when the uniforms and titles don't match the people wearing them. Hit like so this reaches someone who needs the map. Subscribe. If you believe receipts beat rumors, and in the comments tell us one small authority you'll spend this week to push your neighborhood an inch closer to fair.